It's all changed at Maccabi. Colossus and Kozur impress, and we look ahead to what's in store this week in Euroleague. Only on Sweet 16. Tune in.
Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of Sweet 16, an open look on EuroLeague basketball. I'm Moshe, and we've promised you big surprises along the way, and one of them is our own greatest Aris from Eurohoops.net, who's joining us alongside me and Emmet. Hello, Aris.
Hello, I am not that big of a surprise. Actually, I'm a fan of your show, so it's a pleasure to be with you.
Hi guys, Emmet from my ever so not so clean bedroom here in Dublin from BallinEurope. Good to see y'all.
We've got a great show for you today with Aris, with Emmet, and it's going to be great. Emmet, can you elaborate on what are we expecting?
Well, we've got lots coming up. Obviously, we'll begin as ever with a 4-minute warning where we're going to break down last week's game. Then the coach's playbook is going to look at a certain club which has got a lot of changes underway, is one way of phrasing it. Scout's notebook, it's going to look at two players who stood out, as we mentioned, Colossus, Kozur. We're also going to have a bit of Milos because it's almost become mandatory there's a bit of Milos. And lastly, we will look ahead to the games ahead this week in the EuroLeague, which is of course another stacked week on the cards.
If you had an open look, one shot, would you swish it, wish it, or go fish it? 16 teams, gonna be sweet. Sweet 16.
4 minutes to get through all the action that just happened in EuroLeague. It's the 4-minute warning.
It was a great night in Athens and the result was the same. I don't know if you have noticed it, but since Zeljko Obradovic left Panathinaikos, he never managed to get a win at Oaka. This is a coincidence, of course, nothing more than that. I believe that Panathinaikos felt a little bit bigger urgency to win this contest. That was the main difference between the two teams, and also Kalathis had a career night. It was interesting to see the matchup between Kalathis and of course Kostas Loukas. Those are supposed to be the two starting, let's say, the two competitors for the starting point guard job in the Greek national team, even though they can play together. And of course there is a certain very tall forward from Milwaukee who can also run the point, but that's for another segment. The point is that Panathinaikos is making a steady progress that makes the team happy, and we have not seen yet the version of Panathinaikos with Gentile. I believe that the second half of the regular season is going to be very interesting for the Greens. As for Fenerbahce, yes, they dropped a game, but they are still among the title contenders, and I think that even though there was an old habit in Athens to try to explain everything that Obradovic did with him having a certain plan, so even a defeat was part of this plan. I believe that it's a matter of timing. The new schedule does give you, in some occasions, the luxury to not fight until death, and I believe that Fenerbahce will do that in the second half of the regular season.
Okay, well, I thought that Fener's game was not fluent enough. Something is definitely missing. But besides that, we had another game that was pretty much a game changer in a way. We saw Crvena Zvezda crushing Maccabi Tel Aviv. We've been talking for the past 2 weeks on the coach's playbook. We gave bits and tips and bits about a bit of what's going on with Maccabi and their problems, and it seemed that nothing worked for them that night. They have a lot of things going on right now, and we're gonna elaborate on that during the show. Emmet, did you enjoy that game, and maybe even, I don't know, Darussafaka versus Madrid?
Well, at the Maccabi Zvezda game, obviously it was in Belgrade. But wow, the margin. Because I remember, I think it was our first episode, we were talking about how good a job Rami was doing getting the players together in Tel Aviv. Didn't last too long, it's got to be said. But yeah, it's a big change. It's going to be interesting to see what happens next with Maccabi. I know we're going to talk a bit more about that shortly. But it's huge, obviously, Moshe, to see that sort of a move made at this point of the season. A second coach axed from the one club, and we're not even at the halfway stage. Shows you the pressure in that club. Darussafaka Madrid, huge win for Blatt, not just because you're beating Real Madrid, who are a great basketball team, but Darussafaka had got a win a few weeks ago, a few weeks ago, which made them look like okay, they're contenders, but they had a couple of rough results then, like some pretty clear defeats, like not close ones. And you're kind of going, maybe they've lost a sheen, maybe they aren't quite what they were. So they needed a win like a win over Real, and a clear-cut one as well, in order to get the job done. I don't know, Aris, what was your own take on Darusha beating Madrid?
You know, for me, there was another thing that was noticeable, or at least was a good thing for Coach Vlad. He got Bradley Wanamaker back. You know, they got smoked in the Fernando Buesa Arena. So in terms of confidence to his team, it didn't matter that, you know, Real was missing some key players. For them, I think, in terms of confidence, it was all good.
If you had to overlook one shot, would you swish it, wish it, or go fish it?
The coach's playbook, where we look at the strategies that worked and that need to work in the coming weeks in EuroLeague.
And this week on the coach's playbook, we decided to go with something a bit different, especially with Maccabi getting all the headlines, with Rami Adar taking responsibility after getting basically after getting smoked in Belgrade. Maccabi had a lot of problems from the get-go. You know, they managed to gather good performances, got a few W's. At the end of the day, they are missing a point guard. They had, I'm saying, players were not playing the position they were supposed to. A lot of candidates, eventually the management decided to go with Aris Barkas, a good coach. The question is, Aris, is for you. What do you think that Barkas can bring? Is he the perfect fit, and is it going to be enough? Just him, or do Maccabi need to make a roster change with the addition of another point guard?
First of all, we don't know yet the deal between Maccabi and Barkas. I will be surprised to hear that it's a deal only until the end of the season. I believe that in order for Barkas to leave the position he had in Togus Darusafaka, he should have something more than being a head coach in order to convince him. So probably a new project is starting again for Maccabi. The problem for Maccabi is that they acted this year like an NBA team. They had the management sign most of the players, and then they tried to find the right coach in order to lead them. I believe that was the misfire, the main misfire of Maccabi, because this is not how things generally work in Europe. In most cases, the coach is not only responsible for coaching the team, but also for picking the players. He's practically also the GM, even in the cases that there are GMs in the teams. The opinion of the coach is heavily influenced in the final decision making. So I believe this is the problem. There was a management that created a roster that on paper should be a EuroLeague contender, but they couldn't get the results. And yes, I agree. The main issue for Maccabi, I believe, it's the playmaker position. They need a floor general. If they can get him, things can go smoother compared to what we have seen so far, because the talent that Maccabi has is really amazing, and I don't think that Maccabi, no matter the circumstances, will be left out from the playoffs race, even if they have kept Hadar, even if they had some misfires. They have so much talent that they will squeeze their way to be fighting for the playoffs until the last minute. The problem is that Maccabi had set the bar too high for the goals of this team, and Barkas is taking a huge risk, I believe, but probably this is going to be a calculated risk in order for him to decide to say yes. I also have to note that during the time that we are filming this segment, we are not completely sure yet about a possible deal with Barkas. Maccabi tried to force things and have him sign in order to be ready to coach for in the next EuroLeague game of the team, but this deadline is already missed. So I don't know how things may play out.
Right now, the situation is that Maccabi's management are expected to fly to Turkey to meet with Coach Barkas. You know, in a way, he's going to have a lot of work to do, especially for the fact that right now Maccabi was playing till now the wrong sets on offense. So he's going to have to basically start from scratch. And, if it's him, we know now that he's the chosen one. He's the preferred option. He's the one that for now said yes. But until, like Ari said, until we're not getting the confirmation, the official announcement, we're going to wait with it. But, that's the direction so far. And that's it with Maccabi.
Just to finish off this segment, Moshe, it's like, you're absolutely right. I think both of you guys in all your calls here. The one thing for me that they've got to do with Maccabi is, no matter what, stick with this guy. With Bagdatis, sorry, I can't pronounce his name because I'm Irish. Bagdatis. If they stick with him. I mean, seriously, give him at least to the end of the season, or probably really the end of next season, because what Maccabi needs right now is stability. Because you're not going to keep players if they don't think they're going to know the coach is in 2 weeks' time. So that's my take on it. It's pretty simple. Just put a bit of faith in the guy and actually give him time to build a team.
Fenerbahce seems to be in trouble, but I wouldn't worry much if I was in their shoes. They have a great coaching staff, they have a great management, they have great players, and they are waiting for Bogdan Bogdanovic. If my information are correct, Bogdanovic could have been pressured to play even now because his injury is not that grave as many people suspect because of the time he has missed. And when Bogdanovic will be back, all the pieces will fall into place. In the meantime, Kostas Loukas is making the most of his opportunity and he's emerging as a true leader, something that everyone was expecting from him.
So the one coaching side of things which has really jumped out for me in the last week or two is David Blatt once again showing he can win the big one, or at least beat the big team. While it wasn't Real Madrid at their finest last week, he still took the opportunity and got the big W. Add to that, he's the only coach this season to have a win on his record over CSKA Moscow. CSKA, of course, now with a 3-game lead at the top of the table. That's pretty much a great achievement for David Blatt, and a sign that if it gets to playoff time, maybe Darusha are not that easy an option to take on. And now it's time for the Scouts Notebook, where we look back at key performances during the week in Euroleague to see who stood out and why.
What many people outside of Greece don't really know is that there was a fever debate about what Nick Kalathis can do on the court. The fact that he's not a pure shooter, to say the least, have proven to be an issue, and there was a lot of misunderstandings about what he can do well and what he can't do well on the court. I believe that the last few weeks Kalathis have proven that he can be not exactly the replacement of Diamantidis, but at least the leader of Panathinaikos in this season. He has a very skilled arsenal in his disposition. He can do a little bit of everything. He's a great passer, this is his main advantage, and he's also a great on-the-ball defender. I really don't think that especially the fans of Panathinaikos have appreciated what they really have in Kalathis. And also there's a big shadow, the shadow of Dimitris Diamantidis, still at Oaka, that makes the comparison with Kalathis a little bit uneasy. But the truth is that Kalathis is here to stay, and he's the best hope of Panathinaikos in order to achieve something, because also this team needs another point guard.
So the big standout performance in terms of comebacks of late has been Rosa Bamberg, and one guy who really did what Bamberg were needing in last week was just stood up, Fabian Kozur. He came, of course, from Baskonia last year, where he had an on and off year, not so much in quality but in terms of health, and weren't really sure he was going to be the guy who could take over a game for Rosa Baskets, and that was the thing. He really just showed up in this game. 32 minutes on the floor, 28 points. He only had a couple of assists, a couple of rebounds. What really stood out was they just needed a guy to go out and hurt an opponent, and that was what Fabian Kozur brought them. He just decided it was going to be his game. They were not going to lose this game, and he was going to make sure he owned Efes in Istanbul. Like, it's not even a stat line thing with Kozur. What Bamberg were missing wasn't stat line guys. It was guys who could, when a game was close, just take over, make the shot for themselves, or create the shot for someone else. Basically someone who could be that pressure situation, because the final minute of games which has been killing Bamberg. Fabian Kozur essentially went out and made sure the final minute of this game was not going to hurt Rosa Bamberg. So now they've gone from 2-8 to 4-8, largely because of what Kozur did last week, and they've got a very fascinating matchup coming up this week as a result. if they can keep taking over games, if they can keep getting performances like what we saw from Kozur, and if he can keep delivering them, they're going to hang around a while.
How good Milos Teodosic is? Well, he's so good that this week the EuroLeague has done something special. They had a special top 10 plays by Milos and another top 10 plays for the rest of the guys that gave their amazing performances. Milos had another great game, 16 points, 11 assists, nothing new, but we keep asking ourselves, when we just think that we've almost seen everything from him, what can he do next? And he keeps surprising us, he keeps giving us amazing passes, the way he reads the court, the way he plays on the offensive end, he's simply amazing. It's something that I do not remember any guard that had such amazing passing ability, that was so dominant, that did pretty much whatever he wanted. And thumbs up, EuroLeague, you did great with the top 10 plays. Thanks for listening to me. And, well, let's see what Milos got next.
Sweet 16, an open look on
EuroLeague basketball. Covering 16 EuroLeague teams.
Gonna be sweet. Sweet 16.
So now it's time to look at our games of the week, and there's one game on the list which, in normal circumstances, would be a game of the week, but Moshe, we can't really say Maccabi and Cheska's game of the week this week, can we?
No, we cannot. I think that right now, with the situation with Maccabi, I'm going with Cheska this week. Any other result would be the biggest upset of the year.
So Moshe, what is your game of the week?
There are so many games. It was very hard for me to pick one, but Darush Shafaka, Fener, David Blatt, Coach Zeljko Obradovic, it's an instant classic. Pretty much, I think the best two basketball minds of the beginning of the 2010 and so on, who were so dominant with what they did. And every game between these two, it's a chess match. And the guy who blink first, the guy who misses his attention for a second, usually pays big. This is a game I would like to see, especially with David coming off a big win versus Madrid, and with Zeljko Obradovic coming with his team after a loss, the OAKA. So it's got to be great. When it comes down to tactics, this game is one for the ages, and I think that Aris would probably agree with me on this one.
Yes, I agree, because this is also a matchup that was missed during the recent years in EuroLeague because of David Blatt's presence in the NBA. So we kind of missed those kind of duels. But on the other hand, you have Obradovic, who, no matter who is the opponent, he has all the tradition and all the numbers on his favor. I believe that the real nemesis of Obradovic was Penny Gerson. This is a really underrated coach, and he was the one that really put Obradovic in trouble. I believe that, I don't want to say that Obradovic has the number of David Blatt, but that Obradovic has the advantage almost against every opponent.
And I suppose one game is jumping out to me because of the somewhat but not wholly unexpected fortunes of the sides, and I think Moshe is going to agree with me on that actual description. It's Barcelona away to Saski Baskonia this week, and Baskonia are doing way better than we had called them at the start of this year. I think it's fair to say we expected Baskonia to do well, but not as well as they're doing. Like, they're joint second right now, which is incredible for them in the standings, and they're hosting a Barcelona team, Moshe, which I think you'll agree is underperforming.
Well, Emmet, I do agree. It's probably two great teams. Barcelona are still struggling. We've expected from them to look differently from the beginning of the season. The thing is, a lot of injuries. Players are coming, trying to fill up the all the gaps that were left because of those injuries. They are trying to get back into rhythm. They, in a way, they looked in the Cheska in the eyes for, I think, 2 quarters. In a way, a quarter and a half, because halftime it was still a close game. But with Baskonia, they are a well-oiled machine. Their offense is remarkable. It's a pleasure just watching it. Their guys are scratching. They are not afraid of doing anything. They are a team to look out for. They are great. And Aris, I would love to hear what you're thinking about Baskonia of 2016, 2017, especially after what we've seen from them last season. 2 completely different teams, 2 different rosters, but Baskonia is here to stay, isn't it?
Yes, and there is a detail that says everything about this game. Usually, when Baskonia faces Barcelona, it's a challenge for Baskonia. Baskonia has to prove something. This time, I believe that the challenge is on the side of Barcelona. Barcelona is the team that has to prove something, and that says a lot about the condition that Baskonia has created, especially at home against any opponent. Also this year, like it happened last year when nobody really counted them, but they ended up being part of the Final Four.
And the last game we're going to look at this week is a big trip on the road for Broza Bamberg away to Real Madrid. Because when you've got 2 wins back to back and you're trying to fight your way back into the playoff race, Bamberg 2 games out right now of the playoffs. Real Madrid away, it sounds like a bit of a momentum killer. It sounds like the ideal way to get back off track, so to speak. Aris, how do you see this one going?
I believe that second time will not be a charm for Madrid. No matter the situation, no matter who will be on the court, and Sergio Yul will be this time on the court, Madrid has to win. They dropped one game. Now, if they drop a second, they will start to having some issues. Of course, it's too early in the season, and Madrid has already a great advantage in the playoff race. But they have to keep winning, and the home court of Bamberg can be at this point an issue for every top team that drops a game there. Madrid doesn't have the luxury to lose again after dropping the game in Istanbul last week.
You know, for me, with Bamberg and Madrid, you know, Emmet, we've talked, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, about the change in the mentality of Bamberg, you know, what they need to do. And it looks like this is exactly what they've done so far. And Coach Trinchieri managed last season to get a W versus, you know, pretty much every top contender, every top team. He had one versus Barcelona. He had a double win over Olympiacos versus Cheska. So I'm expecting a fight over there. I think that obviously the advantage goes with Madrid, but I would not entirely rule out Bamberg. You know, they are a team to look out for because right now they are in great form. They are starting to, to pretty much get together again. And it looks like they found their rhythm. And I think for Madrid, that could be a bit of a problem. But on the other hand, Madrid does have the depth that, Bamberg in comparison lacks.
And so that's it for this episode of Sweet 16. And given it's his first time on the show, you have to let Aris be the first to sign off. Aris, where can we find you and Eurohoops across the various social networks?
You can find Eurohoops on the Twitter, on the Facebook, on YouTube, even on VK, and of course in Eurohoops.net, a portal of 6 different languages. As for myself, you can look me up with my Twitter handle, Aris Barkas. It's easy to pronounce. And also, if you are a resident of Greece, you have to bear with me at Cosmote TV, where I'm usually sitting near Olympiacos bench, being the sideline reporter, and also commentating NBA, Lega Basket, Liga Endesa, and BCL games.
You can find me on TeamScout.net. Obviously, my Twitter account is @MosesB1, and I am TeamScout. Emmet, where can they find you?
Well, aside from my bedroom in Dublin, you can, and please don't look for me there, you can find me at BIE_basketball on Twitter, Facebook.com/BallinEurope, and of course at BallinEurope.com. But from me in Dublin, from Aris in Athens, and from Moshe in Tel Aviv, well, that's it for yet another episode of Sweet 16. Tune in next time.
Sweet 16, an open look on
EuroLeague basketball. Covering 16 EuroLeague teams.
Gonna be sweet. Sweet 16.
Follow Sweet 16 on TeamScout.net, Eurohoops.net, and BallinEurope.com. We're also available on iTunes and SoundCloud. Don't forget to subscribe and tune in.